What is likely to be the last HS2 tunnel boring machine has now begun its 7.2 km long drive from Old Oak Common. The TBM, christened Karen after Karen Harrison, one of the first female train drivers in the UK, joins Madeline, which was launched in January. Madeline was named in honour of Madeline Nobbs, the former president of the Women's Engineering Society. Unless HS2 is extended north towards Manchester in future, then they will quite literally be the last TBMs used to construct HS2 tunnels. So the launch of Karen on the 16th of March feels almost like a bittersweet moment. The good news is, it is almost certain now that HS2 trains will eventually reach Euston. The frustrating part, however, is that the government still does not see how critical it is that HS2 is extended north beyond Handsacre, at the very least to Crewe, but ideally to Manchester, and I would argue Leeds as well. But for the time being, we'll have to take some solace in the fact that the two TBMs are now finally on their way to Euston to construct the twin-bore Euston Tunnel. Although they are on the way towards Euston, they won't actually reach the station, and will instead come to a stop around a kilometre from the station throat. I explained why TBMs aren't being used for the final 300 metres of tunnels in a video published a few weeks ago. I'd encourage you to watch that video if you haven't already, link in the description and in the top right corner. This video will cover Euston Tunnel specifically, but I plan to release a deep dive video that will explain how TBMs work after this one, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that fascinating video. I did say Euston Tunnel specifically, but I thought we should start at the Victoria Road crossover box, which is just to the west of Old Oak Common. This unusual box has been constructed using methods more commonly used for cylindrical ventilation shafts. So, in essence, it's been constructed by joining 5 shafts together. This box could be described as the portal for Northolt Tunnel, which is 13.5 km long and heads towards West Ruislip. However, the function of the box isn't as a portal, and instead will, as the name suggests, house a crossover. This crossover will allow trains heading towards Old Oak Common to utilise all of the 6 platforms which are being constructed within the 20 metre deep station box. The initial reason for installing the crossover was to provide operational flexibility, and so that southbound trains could, if needed, head north from Old Oak Common. As it turns out though, this crossover will now become crucial, as Old Oak Common will act as London's terminus, possibly for 5 years or more, until the new Euston HS2 station is complete. Being a flat crossover does mean capacity is limited, and Old Oak Common was never designed to be a terminus. But it is thought that up to 10 trains per hour could terminate and depart from the station, which should be more than sufficient for the services planned initially. From the crossover box, there is a sprayed concrete lined or SCL tunnel, constructed using the same techniques detailed in the Euston Approach Tunnel video. This tunnel runs for a short distance from the box under Victoria Road and the North and West London lines to Old Oak Common. Euston Tunnel will run from the southern, or more accurately speaking, eastern end of the 800 metre long Old Oak Common station box. The platforms will only be 400 metres long. However, the box is significantly larger to allow room for a second scissor crossover that will be installed at the eastern end, and for the tracks to fan out at both ends of the box from the tunnel portals to the platforms. The fact that construction of Euston Tunnel has commenced from within the box has made construction more challenging. This is because Balfour Beatty Vincia Sistra JV has begun construction of the station from within the box. At the same time, SCS JV, which is responsible for constructing Northolt and Euston tunnels, as well as Euston Approach, is also constructing Euston Tunnel from within the same space. So currently, the two joint ventures are working simultaneously within the box. This may not seem particularly challenging, however, there will be all sorts of contractual, legal and insurance-based reasons why BBVS and SCS workers can't just work alongside one another. This means both JVs are working in the box, which, for the time being, has been divided into 2 separate work sites. For SCSJV, this means that all of the materials and workers heading in to construct the tunnel and spoil being transported away must pass through a purpose-built 853 metre long logistics tunnel. This tunnel links the eastern end of the station box to the Atlas Road Logistics Hub. Building a tunnel that will likely later be filled in just for logistics may seem a bit excessive. However, it allows SCS to transport spoil away by rail rather than road, with excavation of the tunnels generating an approximate 1.5 million tonnes of spoil. It's helping to take in the region of 75,000 lorries off London's roads. The tunnel will also be used to transport tunnel segments from the logistics hub, which are also arriving by rail from Strabag's precast facility in Hartlepool. As mentioned earlier, SCS workers are also using the tunnel to get to and from an SCS compound to the Old Oak Common site. Crucially, the logistics tunnel allows construction of the station to continue unimpeded, while Euston Tunnel is also constructed. It's interesting to note that the TBM which constructed one of the tunnels for the Elizabeth line was used to construct the logistics tunnel. It's not uncommon for TBMs to be reused, it's just an interesting fact which I learned from Ian visits. Although the tunnel links Acton to Old Oak Common, there will be no practical use for it once Euston Tunnel is completed, and it's unlikely it will be of much use for utilities. So it will likely be completely filled in. Otherwise, it would just become an ongoing maintenance and security burden. The two TBMs constructing Euston Tunnel should finish their 7.2 km long drives by mid-2027, after which emergency cross passages will have to be installed, as well as an invert or ground slab and walkways. I provided much more information about all of the work that goes into constructing a tunnel after the TBMs have completed their task in a video last year. I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. Somewhat disappointingly, the TBMs won't have breakthrough moments, unlike most of the others which have been used to construct HS2 tunnels. They will instead just come to a stop underground. Most of the TBM's constituent parts will then be disassembled and transported along the newly completed tunnel towards Old Oak Common, and then to the logistics hub via the logistics tunnel. The tunnelling shields will, however, remain permanently in place. The cutter heads will also remain in place, however, they will eventually be cut apart and removed. Euston Tunnel, much like other tunnels, will require the construction of ventilation shafts, of which 2 will be constructed. Work had started on the 2 shafts before work on Euston was paused in 2023. Excavation of the Canterbury work shaft was already well underway prior to the pause, and was excavated down to base level before work was brought to a so-called safe stop. Work to complete the shaft is expected to restart in the summer. Construction of the Adelaide Road ventilation shaft was at a less advanced stage, and only reached the level of the existing West Coast Main Line before work was brought to a safe stop. It's likely that the TBMs will pass underneath the site for the vent shaft before excavation recommences. This means it could be 2028 before the shaft reaches base level and the concrete base slab is complete. However, HS2 Limited and SCS are looking at ways in which this work could be accelerated. So that's everything you need to know so far about Euston Tunnel. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss the next video. And just before I go, could I ask that you please give the video a like, as it helps my content to get noticed.